Morning. We're here at Joe Krimp and Becky Krimp's house. We're here in Washington, Indiana. And this is Joe right over here. Joe ran Coca-Cola up here for a long time. His wife, Rebecca Engel Krimp, is from Evansville, Indiana. Her dad delivered me and my three sisters. Her dad was one of the biggest GYN doctors in Evansville. Had over 16,000 deliveries and was a Wrights High School All-Star football player. But right here's what we want to talk about. This bird is called Big Ass Bird, and Joe's going to tell us a few stories about that. This Big Ass Bird was called Big Ass Bird, and it lost its name about 70s, or not in the 90s when it became Tar Heel Howe. We now have this same plane in Evansville, Indiana, since about 2020. It's called Hoosier Spirit II. So Joe, tell us a few stories about Big Ass Bird and who owned it when it was Big Ass Bird and who the pilot was running and the stories that you may have.
Well, Big Ass Bird, I got to know him, the plane from my flying days as a warbird pilot. Flew at warbirds for 12 years. And I had the pleasure of being with this airplane at several air shows. Got to know Howard Parks, who was the major that flew Big Ass Bird during the war. At one air show I asked him how it became Big Ass Bird, and he said, well, we were in England and new P-47s arrived at our base, and my flight sergeant and I went out to look at my airplane, and we were standing there looking at it, and the sergeant says, well, Lieutenant, what would you like to call it? And he says, you know, I really don't know, but it sure is a big ass bird. And that's how the name got. The sergeant put that, the flight sergeant put that on the next morning. It was there. And it was a big ass bird the entire time I knew it. It was owned by Charles Osborne in Louisville. He also owned a B-51 called Hurry Home Honey. Had the pleasure of going up in that airplane, the 51, the first time I was ever in a Mustang. It was quite a trip. But anyway, there's a little history there that you now own.
When you flew a T-6 along with this and the P-51, can you tell us about how many air shows you did and who was flying the P-51, and he's still around, and who else flew the P-47?
Charles is the only one that I ever knew that actually flew the 47. He was in good health then, not so much today, but back then he was fine. And Brad Hood is the fellow that flew the Mustang, and he was the pilot for UPS. He flew the big heavy jets, and in his spare time he was the maintenance guy on this airplane and the B-51. So I would see them. I flew air shows for 12 years, got to meet a lot of great guys, lost a lot of great guys. Air shows, as you can see by what just happened in Texas, can be a dangerous business. And so I had the pleasure of flying alongside this airplane on many air shows, and quite a treat.
Can you tell us your experience with Chuck Yeager? Just tell us what you did with Chuck Yeager.
Well, I have to leave the language off. But I was at the air show in Clarksville, Indiana, when Charles Osborne, who was the air boss, called me in my motel room one morning and said, Yeager's here, wants to go flying, do you want to take him? Now that's Chuck Yeager, and I couldn't turn that down. So we flew for about an hour together, along with a friend of mine in another airplane, and with Chuck Yeager's lead. A lot of people don't realize that Chuck Yeager was a wingman during the war. He didn't fly lead. His lead was flew a Mustang called, you see it all the time now, I'm blank on it. It'll come to me in a minute, but real famous Mustang that this fellow flew, Andy Anderson was his name. He flew lead for Yeager, and they had quite a career together. The pleasure of flying with Chuck Yeager was amazing. Quite a pilot. He was with me when he was probably 60 years old. I can imagine what it was like when he was 20 years old. He did everything with that airplane humanly possible, and it still stayed together.
So he put it through its runs when
No.
when he was with you. He came down from above at another plane and everything else.
It was, yeah, we were probably 5,000 feet, and he saw my friend in another airplane with Andy Anderson blinded, and said, "Let's go kill him. I'm gonna tell you the expletives he used." So he indicated we were gonna go kill him, so he rolled the airplane over on his back, and down we went, and till he was absolutely above them, looking right straight into their cockpit, and said, "I think we can kill the blank with blank from here." And so it was quite a day.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Joe. These are interesting comments. We're going to put them in our little video at our museum, Evansville Wartime Museum. Thanks for your input.
Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay.